Welcome to Slope Reliability, the show where we learn about reliability, observability, and resilience one day at a time. I'm your host, Stephen Townsend. Welcome back to Slope Reliability. I'm Stephen Townsend, and this is the show where we learn about SRE and increasingly technology leadership over the many episodes that have been released in recent times. Today, I'm joined by Richard Bown. Richard has seen the boom and bust of telecoms in the 90s, the dot-com bubble, Internet of Things, big data, all the way to the current AI hype. His first decade was as a hotshot corporate coder, while also leading a popular open source music software project. Since then, he's worked as a DevOps leader in financial and platform engineering teams for many global brands. He's been a tech journalist, used to run a podcast, which I was on, and is active in the RANDS leadership community. He's also an author in his debut novel, Human Software, recently self-published. He's originally from the UK. He now lives with his family near Amsterdam in the Netherlands, which is my favorite country in the world. Don't ask me why, it just is. How are you today, Richard?
Stephen, thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I'm really good. Thank you.
It's so weird. I was the guest last time, and now you're the guest. We switched it. We switched it up.
It was a while ago, wasn't it? Right, a couple of years, I think.
I can't even remember what we talked about, but something.
No, well, yeah, my podcast was quite random, so we had we had a great chat. I have to listen back to it, to be honest.
Oh, that's right. And you had a logo for the podcast, and I did the MS Paint version of it just for that episode.
That's right. Yeah, it was brilliant.
So what's this this open source music software project? Is it something that I may have heard of?
Depends if you use Linux for your audio stuff. Because, okay, well, probably not in that case then. Because a long time ago, two friends of mine from university created a Unix sequencer and MIDI notation and a notation editor as well. And in the mid-90s, when we left uni, basically, I took over or helped port it to Linux, essentially. And then we rewrote it over a course of about 5 to 10 years, it seems. And we promoted it, and it's still going. I mean, it's over 30 years old, and it's still going as an ongoing community. I'm not involved with it anymore, but it's called Rose Garden, and it's still out there and still being used. So, yeah, it was a big part of my life for quite a few years.
I'll have to put a link to that in the description for anyone who just happens to listen and go, oh, I've been waiting for that. How do I find that? The other thing I wanted to ask about is the RANDS leadership community. What's that? Mm-hmm. Is there something I should know about, or is it a thing in the UK or Europe?
No, it's actually from a guy who used to work at Apple and Slack. It's a guy called Michael Lopp. He's written a couple of books. You might have heard of one of them is called Managing Humans. And he's, basically a leader, I guess, in the product software engineering space. And 10 years ago, it's about 10 years old now, he created this Slack group called RANDS. RANDS is his nickname. I don't know why. There was a story behind that. But he created this Slack group community, and it's now grown to around 37,000 people. And if you just Google for it, perhaps we can include a link to it as well. You can just apply, basically, just say, I want to be a part of it. And it's a really vibrant community with lots of different channels, all about engineering, culture, leadership, running, weightlifting, all sorts of stuff. It's a real vibrant community.
That sounds like something I would like to be part of. I've gained something already for the conversation.
No, it's brilliant.
The other thing, of course, I wanted to ask about is your novel, Human Software. First of all, what made you think, I'm going to write a novel?
Yeah, I don't like doing things the easy way, I guess, is the answer to that. So a few years ago, I've worked in software my whole life, really. I did that at university. I did electrical engineering at university, went straight into an software engineering job, and I've been working it ever since in the various levels, team lead, PO, various other roles. And a few years ago, I finally kind of achieved the management kind of path, and I ended up becoming a manager. And it wasn't really what I wanted it to be, I guess, or I wasn't prepared enough for it to make it a success. And I spent a bit of time after that thinking, like, why didn't this work? And then I started to read for the first time in a long time. I started reading books about the state of where software engineering is and around leadership. And I guess that's why you and I ended up talking, really, because I've been reading about various stuff and posting about various stuff, especially reading Accelerate, reading the DevOps Handbook, and then getting to team topologies, which I got very excited about, socio-technical stuff and the link between humans and the technology. And I kind of wanted to do something about that, but I didn't really have the expertise in any one of those. I'm a DevOps engineer. I'm good at that. And I understand CI/CD automation. Great, from a development background, all that good stuff. However, I didn't feel that I had the knowledge to be able to write a non-fiction, basically. So I thought, I've always been a bit of a creative type, I guess, a writer and a musician and a creator of software. And I just thought, let's go for it. I always wanted to write a book, so I thought, let's just go for it.
So it's just to be clear, we're talking about a fictional novel with fictional characters and settings, a little bit like the Phoenix Project, but exploring real ideas that are applicable to, the tech work that we all are part of. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, it's definitely that. I mean, the same way that the Phoenix Project introduces business ideas and also engineering ideas in the way that we can kind of fix things in the organization, I was really inspired by that and the Unicorn Project, all their amazing books. But it didn't really reflect for me the reality of the situation. Like, you get a consultant, like, for example, in The Goal, for Eli Goldratt's famous book, you get a consultant coming in. And the Phoenix Project, the Unicorn Project, have very much the same kind of feel. A consultant comes in and fixes everything, and at the end of the day, everyone's happy, And I'm like, well, I've seen plenty of consultants come in, and strangely enough, things don't get fixed, right? So, so where are we exactly? And I wanted to reflect that. I wanted to reflect the messiness of the reality of our engineering lives, and the fact that family, friends, relationships with each other, with our parents, with our kids, all these things can suffer if we're on call 24/7, 365. And companies, whether they want to or not, sometimes take advantage of that. And also so do individuals, right? They take perhaps this whole discussion around return to the office, all that kind of stuff. And people have been working remote also comes into it, So it's a give and take, and it's very messy. And I wanted to reflect that basically in the book, but also tell a good story, right? So I've set it in a place that I grew up in the southeast of England, although it's slightly changed, it's slightly modified. But I've also inspired by the film Local Hero as well, which is like an 80s film where a big oil company comes to a small Scottish island and basically buys it out. And similarly, there's a big American conglomerate in this town, and they come there and they employ the local people, but also that they decide now that they want to cut headcount and do it quite brutally. So it's all about that, how that happens. AI gets a look in, data centers, there's lots of stuff. Sailing gets a look in, all these various things. Basically, it's my first book, so I've thrown everything in there.
Well, I'm going to put a link to the book in the description if anyone wants to read it. But there's so many things in there that resonate with me. There was a time, actually before I got into leadership, when I moved away from performance engineering, which was my discipline for 13 years, and I was like expert at that thing. And then I got into SRE, and I just kept thinking about the bigger how's this all working and how could it be better? I read a lot of the similar books. The first one for me was the Phoenix Project. That just changed my mind. Shout out to Carl Laird, who got me into that. And then I just blew this flurry of books. There was a DevOps handbook. I did read the Unicorn Project, Team Topologies. I love that as well. The book that I think most resonated for the big corporate space that I worked in was a book called Sooner, Safer, Happier, which was really, really enjoyed that. And then as time has gone on, I've got some even more sort of esoteric ideas and things that I think are really important. And then I come to work, and then I just can't figure out how to make any of that actually make any difference, or to stick. Yeah. Sometimes I talk about stuff. I started trying to talk about ideas from resilience engineering, and people just gave me blank stares. So I just stopped doing it because I had to go, well, I'm not doing this right, or there's something's not working here. Yeah. So is that your experience? Like how do you get past that, or can you get past that?
100%. Yeah, it's the same thing, right? If you start talking I was a couple of jobs ago, actually might be the large job, I was talking about waterfall, even just talking about waterfall versus agile, and someone said, "Oh, you're just talking in riddles. You're just talking in, I don't know, some kind of gobbledygook, some kind of industry speak." And I said, "No, this is actually quite well known." But then I realized, well, it's not. I'm so far down the rabbit hole is the word, that maybe I just inhabit this in my headspace, all these ideas that I've got, but I can't get them across. So yeah, I definitely recognize that. I think when I got very excited about team topologies in particular, I was kind of trying to see how that would fit into the places that I was working to. And I think we all admit this now, everyone in the community, because I'm quite a part of that community. We've talked about it internally. And I think with anything, you can't talk about the thing. I mean, I think that's pretty much acknowledged in all kind of consultancy. Don't talk about the thing, anything but the thing, right? So you have to do, and it's like, well, okay, what are you left with? That's the question. And the way that I've dealt with it, I think, and I guess probably the way that you've dealt with it too, is just by starting very small and just working with the person next to you, I read this great quote, or I heard this great quote a week or so ago in a YouTube video, which was summarizing a lot of this stuff. And it said, I've got it right here somewhere. Yeah, the quote was, start where you are, use what you have, and help you who you can. And I think that's really powerful, you know, and that's the kind of the philosophy that I've been doing kind of all along, I guess, even before I read anything. I was always kind of like, to begin with, it was like, why can't we automate this stuff? Because that helps us, right? And then you follow automation to its logical conclusion, and suddenly we see CI/CD everywhere in DevOps, all this kind of great stuff. But then we're confusing ourselves with systems again. So then you have to go back to, okay, why are we doing this stuff? You know, it's to make our lives and our customers' lives better. So us as the engineers and the people who are responsible for this system, our lives have to be better too, right? You know, so I think that's where books like Team Topologies are quite powerful, because they do focus on the team, they focus on the individual, they focus on the humane side of stuff. And I just wanted to do that from a really practical point of view, you know, like how do we treat each other day to day? So that's also what my novel is about how we treat each other, right?
This is a bit embarrassing to reflect to myself. I remember 5 or 6 years ago thinking, if you're a leader in tech and you haven't read the Phoenix Project, then like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, there was a point when I thought that, but that's not the attitude. It doesn't help anyone. But that you know, in my early days of learning these things, I thought you have to know this stuff, right? You mentioned about starting small, and that's one of the things I struggle with too. So I had a team of 14. Even when it was smaller, I started thinking of team topologies as the example, seeing me talking about it. What kind of team are we? Are we stream-aligned? Are we, are we a platform team? Are we an enablement team? Because I see aspects of all of these things. And I can't just say we are only going to be this or only going to be that, because that doesn't work for what we need to do. And so I felt like I can't do this. It needs to be done at a higher level. But then I talked to my boss, and she's like, well, I don't feel like I've got any power to change it either. And if I talk to her boss, she might say the same. And it's like, I don't know. Do you think that real change requires a senior leadership to do things, or that you can do grassroots change?
Yeah, sometimes we do grassroots change to kind of insulate ourselves from the decisions that have been made higher up, I feel, and I've definitely been a part of that too. So you can definitely insulate yourself from maybe poor decisions, or you feel, or from external effects by doing that, which I think is a good thing, right? Yeah. I think also personally, any good manager, or the best managers I've had, have always insulated me from that world around that's above them, basically. So even if it is chaos above them, they will say, okay, just get on with your thing and do the thing to the best of your ability. That's what we're here for. And they'll protect me from that, which is great, So yeah, it's a good one. I mean, I think in an ideal situation, you would have everyone aligned, kind of like a leader really showing the way and saying, this is our setting the culture, setting the idea of how we treat each other. I mean, another great book along those lines is David L. Marquet's Turn the Ship Around. I don't know if you've seen that one.
Oh, yeah, I read that very recently. Loved it, yeah.
Yeah, that's an excellent book. And his kind of servant leadership model is just superb, and that's what I guess instinctively tried to do when I became a boss. But if you don't have that model above you, then it's just, and you're not very resilient yourself, which I guess I wasn't at the time, then that's quite hard to take. So it's, in an ideal world, you would have that all the way down. But practically speaking, from my experience over quite a long time, it's more likely the outlier. So you have to do something small and try and make it work. And I think also that's why sometimes, we kind of laugh about these lunch and learn systems, brown paper bags sessions and stuff like that, whatever. The intention behind that was quite good, showing what you're doing and doing all that stuff. Unfortunately, when it kind of scales to a corporate level, often these things just kind of don't work, when they're enforced. So I think personally, I've kind of gone back to the IC level in a DevOps team, and I love just working with people and understanding how we can just fix one thing, make something better, and just work at that very small level.
It's interesting. I have an interview, which will probably release right after this, and I'm interviewing in a few days on the theme of how to change the world. And it's exactly this topic. It's basically, how can you actually change an organization and make a difference? And again, it's related to team topologies. So I'd be curious to see how that conversation goes.
Wow.
I think it's interesting doing, if you accept I can't change the entire org, or, there are impediments to being able to promote change beyond even just your team, part of me thinks it's okay, right? As long as the 5, 10, even 15, whatever of us are learning and experimenting and seeing benefits to ourselves, that's fine, right? But then there's also a part of me that's like, that's not satisfying. Like I need to be able to make more of a difference. I think that's like almost like a turmoil or a conflict that I have. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think it can be satisfying just to make that small scale change? Is it enough? I guess it depends on the person.
Well, I guess. I mean, I think from my experience with what I've seen, because I've been involved on the other side, I've been in a kind of team of consultants coming on board to a huge organization, and like we had 150 teams, and we're trying to do a full DevOps agile transformation. I was coaching teams, and we were talking about how we can structure it, all that kind of stuff. And it was a box ticking exercise essentially for who I felt for the CTO or for the senior management leaders. And you see this again. This is the theme I bring up in my novel, It's like how frustrating it is to see these huge transformations happening. And it doesn't have to be a huge organization like that, but even a large-ish organization or medium-sized one, doing a whole-scale organizational change doesn't work from my perspective, from my experience. So then you go back to, well, what can I do? So then you have to look locally again. And I think, you have to, I mean, this is also the reason that I'm not a consultant. I'm actually a contractor. I'm working. I'm on the tools. I'm still doing the work, right? And that's where I find it most satisfying for myself. And that's also where I feel that I can make the most impact. I think that's important to understand as well. So I would definitely stand up as potentially in the future as a leader if I could do it the way I wanted to, as a servant leader and potentially lead an organization. However, that has to have the backing of everyone, or I need to be like up there to be able to enforce that culture, or to say this is the way that we're working in a way. If that's not happening, then I'm very happy to help who I can where I am, and I'll be content with that. So that's that whole kind of balance, isn't there, between ambition and expectation and not burning yourself out and all these kind of things, So again, these are themes I talk about in the book as well. It's because these are themes that are very close to my heart. It's about burnout. It's about managing mental load. It's about managing your own ambitions, whether you be an executive or you be an engineer.
Yeah. Well, one of the themes from the book that you mentioned is looking after yourself, because at the end of the day, no one else will. You have to look after yourself. That it clearly resonates with me. I have even very recently, which I may have talked about by the time I post this or not, I've come close to burnout again, right? And I've deliberately, spoken up and said I need help and taken a step back. I understand that. How do you look after yourself?
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Really hard. Yeah, so I think you're really brave to come out and say that, and I'll say the same. And I burned out probably my first job. Undoubtedly my first job. I was so excited to be an engineer. I had even had a business card and stuff like that. It was so cool. And it said software designer, which I thought was the coolest thing. And I worked, it was only for about 18 months I was in that job, but I totally I lived it, and we were on call. We had actual pages back then. And I was also starting that open source project at the same time. I was like working on that. I was working at work really hard, and I completely burnt out, panic attacks and like not breathing properly, and just terrible. Yeah. But I didn't really go for any support at that point or other. But I think there's various stages of it now, right? So I kind of got over that. That was fine. I was young. I could bounce back. Then a few years ago in that management role, definitely suffered the same kind of thing, but in a very different, subtle way, really. It just felt like it was more like a depression, really, that kind of settled on me and felt, oh, I can't face this, So, yeah, it's important, I think, to share our stories around this kind of stuff and understand then, where we can fit in and what makes us happy, I guess, right? At the end of the day, it's a bit deep, maybe philosophical. But I think that's something I've reflected on quite a lot, is like, okay, what do I really enjoy about the job? And it always comes down for me is the people, the team. And again, I mentioned this, I think, in the forward for the book around team. The team really makes it important. The people that you're working with closely are the most important thing for me. And also your immediate boss, I think, is very important too.
Yeah. This particular sprint, the last 2-week period that we had, we don't really do agile. We're more of a Kanban type team that have things that need to get processed, right? But as part of it, because I have that background in performance testing, and we have a performance testing function of the team, and the guy who's got that role is learning. I've been starting, the initial strategy for how we're going to components test this new application that we own. And it's been some of the most satisfying stuff I've done in a long time, just because I can just sit down and analyze something with skills that I have. I don't need anyone else. It's just been such a revelation. And I think there's two things. One is that I had my previous managers before, 2 managers ago, he said to me recently, no matter what's going on, just make sure that you build time into every week to do something which energizes you and that you enjoy in your work, as part of your work, not in spare time, in your work, And I thought that was good. And then extending on that, my mentor, Andrew, who I meet about once a month to talk about leadership topics, who's incredible. He said, look, if you're going to survive in tech, especially in leadership, for a long, long career, you have to enjoy it. And you have to find ways to just be calm and be at peace. If you don't, then you will just fall apart. And that was like, you know what? I felt like things falling off my shoulders. I was like, you know what? I can just enjoy this and find the things that I enjoy. Sure, there'll be things that are challenging, but it's got to predominantly be that okay, at least, right?
Yeah, agree. Yeah, 100% agree. You got to come away at the end of the week and think, yeah, I accomplished something and that didn't suck. I think for me, those are the two things, right? But hopefully I really enjoyed that. That's the thing. I mean, I do have this note written under my monitor, which is when I was writing the book, which is to remind myself that it's called the rule of thirds. I heard it somewhere or other, but a third of the days are going to be good, a third of the days are going to be average, and a third of the days are going to be shitty, basically. And I do stick by that. I think it's quite cool if you kind of remind yourself that it's not always going to be great. And sometimes you're going to push really hard and it's still going to turn out badly. And sometimes you're going to push really hard and it's going to be okay. And sometimes you won't do anything and it'll be great, So I think having that permission to not have to be on it the whole time is good, but also coming back to the point where, you feel generally you come to the end of a week or a day and that was okay. Or days are maybe less important. It's more weeks, I think, and months for me, for sure.
Yeah, that's sort of time scale. I think I know I'm taking the conversation all over the place, but there's something else that I learned from my mentor was about understanding what your hotspots are. Like, what are the things which are going to cause you to get in fight, flight, or freeze, and understanding, knowing what they are, so you can prepare for them or go, okay, this is why this is happening. It could be a particular person, a particular meeting, a particular process, a particular whatever it is, right? Yeah. Knowing what they are, and then knowing how to, within those moments, you're going to feel like something really terrible potentially, but learning how to behave in a way which is still going to get the outcome you want, rather than just being emotional, like yeah. And that is something I am still working on. Yeah, that level of emotional regulation. It's tough, right?
Ooh, tell me about it. Well, yeah, absolutely. And something I've struggled with a lot in my career. I've had a lot of jobs, right? And I have when I was younger, I had a very much a need to do the next thing, to move on, to not be bored, basically. And I just moved around because I was looking for the next thing. But also I've got to points where I just completely just lost it in jobs and stuff like that, and have that level of emotional dysregulation, essentially. And then a couple of years ago, my kids were like putting their hands up and going, because my kids are like kind of 18, 20 or so. They kind of said, we're struggling a bit. So they went to therapy and they both got diagnosed as ADHD. And then one of the therapists one day looked at me and said, you should probably get yourself checked out. I was like, okay. So I started looking into the traits of ADHD and I'm like, oh, okay, I probably tick off quite a few of these things, if not all of them. So that self-knowledge is really invaluable, that, okay, that's why I kind of got angry there, or I didn't understand that, or these things that maybe the team saw as strange, I was reacting to or behaving in a different way to. It's like, okay, that's been a real revelation, just to kind of understand myself a little bit better. And I don't kind of generally, this is the first time I actually talked about it in public as well, so I don't generally kind of make this public, and I haven't actually gone through any formal diagnosis yet, but even without that, seeing my kids and having to help them, support them in the needs that they need to be able to learn, to be able to deal with their studies, has really helped me understand myself a lot better and understand where my trigger points are, and potentially how I work better and why I work in the way I do as well. So I think understanding yourself is important, but getting to that understanding is never a smooth road, right? It's kind of like, I need to sit down and understand myself today. That's not really going to happen. You have to kind of analyze where you are and how you're reacting to the situation, and then kind of think back about it again. So yeah, that's been really cool.
I think it's okay to get to crisis points. But I think that those can be the times where you learn the most, and the opportunity, maybe you need to get there before you can go, oh, okay, this isn't working. Why isn't this working? And then it might take you a year to process that, but that's okay, I think the other thing is, I think, there's this whole thing. Some people I have worked with, they're like, it's just work. Work's work. Who cares? I disagree. I think we spend so much of our time at work, it has to have meaning and it feel good. But also, what you were just saying there is that you can use work as an opportunity just to learn a lot about yourself and be a better human being all round if you treat it in that respect.
Indeed. No, I think that's great. A great philosophy.
I was going to say, very philosophical episode, but I love it.
Yeah. No, that really strikes at the heart of what I was trying to encapsulate as well. I was trying to get across, I guess, is the fact that, we do spend a lot of time there. I mean, I've got the name's author, but the 4,000 Weeks book as well, is about very important about how you spend your time, right? And we spend a third of our lives at work. So you should make it good, especially if you have this kind of need to sit in front of computers for 8 hours a day and do this crazy stuff that we do, Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild if you think about it. Try not to think about it too much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So as people know, I don't use, the podcast isn't a place for like promoting things, but I am just curious, just genuinely, you've written a book. What do you do? Like, what do you do with it? How do you promote it? What do you go on book tours? Do you cite people's books? How does it work?
Is it okay to show it?
Of course it is.
Yeah. So honestly, I'm still working out as I go along. So the first, I don't know, where are we now? 6 weeks, I guess, since kind of launch. But because I'm self-publishing, it's all like on my own timescale very much. And of course, before that, for 2 years, I was writing it and doing various other things. So now I've kind of cobbled together a strategy, if you could call it that. So I was in London about a month ago, about 3 weeks ago, for the Fast Flow conference, actually. So which is a Team Topologies line conference. Met a lot of friends and colleagues there and punted it a bit. They had a T-shirt. I'm wearing it under this shirt, actually, T-shirt. And I gave away a few copies, sold a few copies. I had a small launch event in a pub just with the friends and family. And I'll probably do that again in Amsterdam as well, where I live. And going on podcasts, basically talking about it, but also talking about the themes, right, I guess, which are around it, and also trying to get onto social media and do that kind of stuff as well. So it's just a bit of everything. I find it quite hard to get out there and talk about it, although you might be surprised to hear that this morning. But it's tricky. But I've got like a really good friend and I stayed with them on the first weekend, and she was like, come on, I'm taking you down the bookshop. And we went down to the local bookshop in the town, and she had a copy, and she was like, come on, this guy, he's written a book, you should buy it, and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know if you've seen, I don't know if you follow any of Vince Gilligan's series, like Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad, but there's a new one out called Pluribus, which I'm a huge fan of his shows. And there's a new one out on Apple TV. And I was so excited. It just came out a couple of days ago. And the lead character is actually an author. And so the first episode, she's in like a Barnes & Noble in the US doing a book signing. And I'm like, oh God, it's so scary. Yeah, so I'm doing that stuff, although on a very much smaller scale.
And like, sorry to drill into it, that self-publishing, does that mean that you've funded the whole thing yourself? And how can people buy it online from a store or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, how long have you got? That's a whole other episode, but it's, or maybe a different podcast. But so I've written it myself. So I've written it in Scrivener for the techies out there. So it's a writing tool, which is written by a software engineer as well. It's very good. It allows you to move parts around. So rather than have it all in a Word document, it allows you to create scenes and chapters and stuff. I've written it all in there. From that, you can create EPUBs, so Mobi or EPUB outputs. It's available on LeanPub. It's available via Kobo. It's available on Amazon KDP via Kindle as well. But also, I've typeset it so you can then export that as a PDF. And then I've typeset it for Amazon as well. So KDP, Amazon, you can buy a hard copy of the book on Amazon. And also it's available via a company called Ingram Spark. And they distribute to local booksellers, essentially. So your Barnes & Nobles, your Waterstones in the UK. I don't know what the big booksellers are in New Zealand, unfortunately, or Australia, but I think it's a global thing that you can order via their websites, essentially. So it has an ISBN, all that kind of stuff. So honestly, for a techie, a guy who's like published stuff onto like the Apple Store and like apps and things like that, it's the publishing bit of the book is actually much simpler than writing the book. So the technical side is pretty straightforward. It's more the writing, the difficult bit, I'd say.
Awesome. Well, we are just about at time. I guess my last question is, apart from the book, what's happening for you in the next 6 months?
Good question. So I am coming to the end of my contract as a DevOps engineer. I'm looking for something else at the moment. So I'm really excited to find out what that will be. And if that doesn't come up in the next 6 months, then I'll be writing another book probably.
We could maybe go
promoting it.
Okay, I could write a book.
Brilliant. Well, you heard it here first, right?
Or I could do the artwork, MS Paint artwork for you on every 10th page or something.
Awesome. I was just going to say, writing a book is I was actually inspired by my wife. She wrote a book last year, which is based on her method. So it's for her. It's a non-fiction based on the work that she does. And she did it and went through the whole thing. So I was like, this is amazing. And I've always wanted to write something. So it's possible is all I would say. And with the tools that we have today and the knowledge we have as techies, I would say just get started. If you've got that in you, then definitely go for it.
That's amazing. Well, Richard, it's been awesome catching up again. Hope you enjoyed your time on the show.
Loved it. Thank you so much for having me, Stephen. It's been brilliant.
And for everyone else out there, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.